Welcome to the I Get Better podcast with your hosts, Charlene Renee and Phaedra Smith, where we discuss topics related to life, love, mental, physical, and spiritual health, and how we can all get better together.
Welcome back to the I Get Better podcast. I am your host, Charlene Renee.
And I'm Phaedra Smith. Today's topic is I get better when I let go of FOMO.
What's FOMO?
So, what is FOMO? Can you give us the definition?
FOMO?
Fear of missing out.
Yeah, FOMO stands for the fear of missing out. This is a relatively new term. It's kind of a slang term, but it does have a definition. I was able to find one in the good old dictionary. So FOMO refers to anxiety that an exciting or interesting event may currently be happening elsewhere, often aroused by posts seen on a social media website.
Yes. I mean, I don't get this as much, but I definitely used to get FOMO. And from time to time, I can get it depending on what's going on.
Yeah, I definitely have. I agree. I don't get it often, but I do sometimes look at what's going on in other people's lives and be like, dang, I want to do that.
Wait, but is that a fear though? I feel like that's not a fear. That's like just not being content or like, kind of like maybe envious or whatever. But when we talk about like an actual fear, this is like people spending money, not spending time with their family, maybe skipping work because they legit have this like anxiety about being left out or missing out on like what's the hottest or what's going on. You know what I mean? Constantly trolling on Facebook and Instagram, Snapchat.
Well, when they say fear and then immediately follow it up with an anxiety, I think it is rather a strong word to say fear or anxiety for that matter, because we talk about anxiety a lot, and I don't necessarily think it's equal to the same anxiety that we might see every day. But there is some discomfort or unease at watching events or experiences happen and you feel like you're missing out on it, or it should be you experiencing that thing.
Right.
And so now you feel less than.
Right. So something that would cause you to want to alter your current state, possibly. But you're right. I feel like anxiety is on like this continuum, this scale, and like you can have the anxiety that's kind of got you a little riled up, and then you have the anxiety that's like your heart is like beating fast and your hands are sweating, stuff like that. So there is like a scale of FOMO, one would say.
It really does, and it can cause some stress, some real life stress for a lot of people when they're experiencing FOMO, because it can become an obsession or something that they're constantly thinking about or ruminating on.
Right.
And they can't escape it.
Right. It can be causing low self-esteem. It can cause, or it can help, perpetuate, I would say, because I don't feel like it would cause it, but I think it wouldn't help it. If you already have these issues and then, you're constantly, looking at things like social media, which kind of just brings us into our barriers, right? So one of the things that we talked about was just triggers. So a trigger for a lot of people is social media. So, I mean, a big thing for me, I would say when I think about social media, and I don't know about you, Charlene, but comparison really pops up for a lot of people that I know.
Yeah, because I mean, that's what you're doing typically on social media is you are looking at the lives of other people. And so it gives you every opportunity to either congratulate them on what they have going on or get in a state of discontentment, about your own life and what you do or don't have going on. And it can create some insecurity when you're constantly bombarding yourself with these visual reminders that someone else's life is different from yours, and you can take different to mean better when that's not necessarily the case. But if you're on social media for several hours of the day, which, let's be honest, a lot of us are, even while we're at work, even while we're doing other activities, we're always on our phones doing something else. And so it gives you more and more opportunities to be triggered by this phenomenon of FOMO.
What's another one that we talked about? I think we talked about, you brought up being impatient.
Yeah, I think impatience is another barrier to letting go of FOMO, is using that comparison scale to say that I should be in this position at this time. So not being willing to wait on your time and your season to be able to participate in these things that you see other people getting involved in or going on without you, what you feel is without you. And so patience is a major key to holding that in place. And, we have another episode on patience. It's very good.
So yeah, it's very good.
To that. It's excellent. And it really does speak to being able to be content and also slow down. Everything doesn't have to happen immediately.
Right.
In life, but we are in a culture that says fast, 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 fast. I need it now. And we're not willing to slow down and wait and take the time for things to happen to us in the right time.
Right. I mean, I think it brings up one of the things we talked about in our I Get Better When I'm Patient, when I'm better at patience, is the idea of not having this microwave mentality. And I think you brought it up. Or do you want like the microwave version of your food or the oven version?
Right. Slow cook. Yes. You don't want we don't want those banquet dinners. We want, or the Hungry Man's. We want the slow Sunday dinner that you started the night before.
Yes.
And then the next day. But yeah, applying that even to this fear of missing out, it's like, that's saying like, you're fearing that you won't get the opportunity to have that same fun or that same experience. Like it's going to disappear. Like it's going to go away. And oh my goodness, if I don't do it right now, I'm not going to get to do it. And so that's where the impatience comes in. And that's a barrier to getting over that and letting go of that.
Well, on that same note, one of the things I just randomly thought of is it takes you out of the mindset of being able to be happy for others sometimes. And then that can really damage your relationships when you can't fully be there for someone else's happiness to congratulate them without always thinking that should have been me, or why wasn't I invited, or I wish I had that. It's like you can't really be there for that person and truly be genuinely happy for that person. So that's a part of that's a part of life that you're missing out on. Is like, I think a part of life is being able to receive in that season, but also being able to be a giver and sometimes being a spectator. I think we gain things out of each, season. And so everything is not for you, and being in the mindset to say that maybe this is not for you, and maybe it never will be for you. Maybe those friendships will never be for you, but where can you find your rest and your peace and your joy and your happiness, and shifting that perspective?
And it's not even friendships. It may be, sometimes we can use it for superficial things like trips or purchases that people are making, or even restaurants people are eating at, and you're like, ooh, I wish I could eat there. But, when I'm listening to you, I'm hearing like a lot of FOMO as it relates to relationships and getting married, and people like thinking, well, I wish that was me.
Yep.
And you're right, not being able to celebrate for others, or thinking that that's gonna be the best thing for them, and it may not be, and the grass is not necessarily always greener. So we need to have a whole nother.
I was about to say I can really get in on that one.
About it, I hear that, because I think that's another cause of low self-esteem and insecurity, is that fear of missing out on relationships.
Right.
And thinking, oh my goodness, I need to get married because I see, Instagram videos like, hey, I just got engaged, and, all these people are like, oh, when's that going to be my turn?
Yeah. Or I just got a new career or a car, but listen, y'all don't know what these people have gone through to get where they are. And I had to check myself also. I mean, there were times in my life where I had a lot of issues with even just financial stuff and looking at other people and like where they are, and it's like you don't know what they went through. You don't know how much of a toll it took on their relationship, their marriage, their friendships, their self-esteem, their mental health. And so wishing that you had or you were or you could do what somebody else is currently doing, you don't always know the story. So I really think that that's a whole topic that we could get in on, because
and you don't know what they're still going through for
correct.
that matter.
They could be living on credit cards for all you know.
Think they already went through it, but they might still be going through it. You know, they might have whatever that car is on a high payment or it's on so they sleep in the car, you know.
Hey, I'm saying, and you thinking people balling? Like, come on now.
They balling. They sleeping in that car at night, so
they balling, all right.
You know, you don't know. And so being content, it really requires a level of patience.
Yes. And realistic expectations.
Yes. Be realistic. Know that nobody starts at the top.
Right. We wish we could.
Right. But I mean, like you said, everything isn't for you.
Right.
And so wanting what everybody else has is not necessarily the best thing. It's not to say don't have goals and dreams. And if you see something you really truly are striving for, that could be an inspiration for you to get it. Because if you see someone else doing it, like I see so many people starting businesses on my friends list. So like for me, it's like, that's motivational. Like, wow, everybody's out here grinding. They're getting their business going. They're stepping out on faith. They're not being afraid to try new things. That makes me want to do more for my own business and for my own goals and dreams. So it's not necessarily something to always look at and compare yourself and be jealous about it or envious about it or anxious about it. But it could be something that inspires you also.
How would you suggest our listeners, what do you think that they could do to be able to differentiate between FOMO versus being inspired? What do you think?
Well, it's the feeling that you get from it. You know when you feel good and when you don't. And so you have to really just be self-aware to know, is this what I'm looking at triggering a bad feeling in me? Like, do I feel upset or do I feel happy when I'm watching other people succeed or do something that I wish I could be doing? And so that just requires a heart check and looking it within and saying, you know, what do I feel like after I've consumed this information? Do I feel worse or do I feel better? Right. And only you would be able to gauge that. If you find yourself constantly feeling down multiple times a day, it could be subconsciously that you're experiencing FOMO and you don't know the word to put to it. And you can't figure out, well, why is it I'm scrolling all day on social media and I don't feel very good at the end of the day? It could be that.
Right. I was actually in looking up stuff, I had found JOMO. Have you heard of that?
No.
Okay. So it's the acronym. It's like the opposite of FOMO. Is where you want to be, the joy of missing out, or it says enjoying what you're doing in each moment without worrying about what everyone else is doing. So it's a sociological phenomenon which is in response to FOMO. So, which is kind of where, yeah, it's kind of, I feel like there's something out there for everything. It's like,
for real.
So
I'm gonna make up another one. Let me see.
Yeah. Oh Lord. So what are some ways? What's that? What's Romo?
I don't know. I can't even
okay, you okay.
I gotta come up.
What are some ways to get better? What are some ways to get JOMO?
Okay, so for me, this is me personally. Whenever I find myself in a position of feeling like I'm missing out on something or not being content with the way my life is going, I have to put myself in a position of gratitude, or maintaining that attitude of being grateful of what I do have, because I do have a lot and I'm very, very blessed. So I know that what's for me is for me, and what's not is not. And when it's my time, I feel like I shouldn't have to force it. And so for me, it's just always reminding myself that what's for me, no one else can take from me, and what's for someone else, I can't have. And so I should be okay with that. And so remaining in gratitude. So one thing you to do every day is just start thinking about or writing a list of all the things that you're grateful for, and start your day off like that, or end your day that way. And so you'll have a constant reminder of all the things that you do have that you didn't always have, that you may have had to work for, that you may have had to wait for, but now they're present and they're manifested in your life. So that's the very first thing, is just to really be grateful of where you are and how far you've come thus far.
Right. I love that. One of the things that I practice, so one of the techniques I use with some of my clients is sand tray, and it's really cool. But the idea behind it is that whether I have 1,000 miniatures for my clients to use, or whether I have 10, my clients always have everything they need. And so it takes me to my next point of really like changing your perspective and reframing things. And so we talked about this earlier. Instead of saying I'll be happy when, or I'll be this when, is shifting your perspective to say, what if life is set up that in some seasons when you think that you're missing out, you actually have everything you need. And if we were to change like our perspective on that, to really say, well, what if I do have everything I need currently? What do I need to shift around to be able to really fit my life, or fit my mindset back into my current situation? What priorities do I need to shift around to give me the time back that I need, and to give me the money back that I need? So I would just wonder if people can start to shift it around and say, well, what if I currently have everything I need? What are some things I can shift around?
That's an excellent point. And as you're saying that, it brings me into the mind of another thing you can do, is to clarify and get in very, very good detail about what your values are. What do you really value? Because when you are able to narrow down your values, you will often find that you do have everything you need. Because what you think you might value, if it's anything material wise, you often won't always have that with you. So wherever you go, you're not carrying all of your stuff with you on your back. So wherever you are, you do have everything you need. But also knowing that when it comes down to it, there's priorities, and you have to know what your priorities are based upon your values. So what do you really value? Do you value stuff, or do you value relationships with people? Do you value time with your family and your friends? And that doesn't always have a price tag to it. And it's not something you can always capture on social media. So those moments in your life that you may be having the most exciting, fun experience of your life, no one may ever see, because if you stop to capture it on a picture or video every single time, you'll miss it, and you won't get to be in the present experience that moment. So what we see, knowing that what we see on social media is what people choose to show us, and those moments they choose to capture, that doesn't mean that they're having a great time. They may just think this is going to be a great picture for the gram, because it looks good. And so I'm going to take this moment and capture it. And now someone else may be looking at that snapshot and saying, wow, that's what I want for my life. And when you take your eyes off of what you currently have, you're missing it. You're missing that being present, being mindful, practicing mindfulness of being in the present moment. You'll never get to enjoy the present if you're always looking outward, or looking to the future, or looking to your past, for that matter.
Right. And the last thing that, it kind of takes us back to the first thing we talked about, which were triggers, but avoiding triggers. And so really practicing ways to, and one of the things you can do is just put your phone down. And I've had to tell myself that, like, just to be in the present. If I'm at a restaurant and I'm like, oh, this would be a pretty food picture. Just leaving my phone in the car, leaving it in my purse, like being in the present. If I see some beautiful scenery, not everything is meant to be captured. You know, some things are just meant for you to be able to appreciate. And so practicing putting it down, just avoiding triggers, getting to know what your triggers are. Number one, realizing what my triggers are is going to be important. And then learning ways to avoid or distract myself, or to put things in place with positive coping skills or whatnot. And so I really think that a part of our problem is that we have a lot of negative coping skills and negative habits. And so really trying to figure out, what are my triggers? And then what are some positive things I can start to incorporate into my life to help me really enjoy my present and get more into JOMO versus FOMO? I think is going to be important for us to really get better.
Yep, definitely. So remembering, clarifying your values, being in the attitude of gratitude, and avoiding those triggers. Those are some practical things that we can all do.
Yeah. Well, this was a good episode. I enjoyed this. I thought it was a good topic for us to really talk about, especially with what's going on in our world with coronavirus. A lot of times we find ourselves really going to social media for a lot of things, and TV, and you can see that with just how people are buying things left and right. I know I had to be like, listen, put the credit card away. So
stop Rona shopping.
Rona shopping.
Rona shopaholic here. But we definitely, I think, have both been doing some of that. So.
Yeah. So
and we really need to be content with what we already
have. Have some. We have everything we need.
We really do. Honestly, I think about that all the time. I don't need anything.
No.
If I buy another item, it's just food is the only thing I can't stop buying. I have to buy that. But as far as objects and clothing, I don't need anything.
I agree. I can barely think if somebody asked me what you want for Christmas or your birthday. I have no idea now. I mean, I can think of big things like I don't need anything, but you want to get me a car? Like the things that like you can't get
car, take me on a trip around the world, something like that.
Yeah, so, but anyways, that's our time for today. Please remember to rate, review, like, subscribe, check us out on Facebook and on Instagram. We really want to hear from you guys. Send us messages about topics you want us to talk about. We want to be able to interact with you guys. So,
yes. Look us up on all our social media platforms. Instagram, I Get Better Podcast. Facebook, I Get Better Podcast. Go listen to us on all the streaming platforms, and make sure you share.
Please share, guys. So until next time, let's keep getting better so we can do better in order to be better. All right. Bye, guys.